The bad guys are using drones. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay. And the federal government has the authority to fight back, does it not? But state, nobody disagrees with that statement? Sure, Professor.
Folks, welcome back to the Constitution Corner, where freedom rings and tyranny gets exposed for what it is. If you're new here, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a dose of truth they don't want you to hear. Now let me get straight to it.
I would say within limits, yes. Within constitutional limits.
Okay. Do any of you disagree with giving state and local law enforcement the authority to fight back?
Again, within constitutional limits.
Okay. Tell me what your constitutional concerns are, Professor.
So I have three primary concerns. The first has to do with the Fourth Amendment and the conditions under which a warrant is required and a general warrant is forbidden by the Fourth Amendment. So in this particular case, it's important.
Professor, before you give me one of your lectures, are you saying that we should require state and local law enforcement to get a warrant before they fight back?
It depends on the condition. So in an exigent circumstance or something along the border.
I'm aware of the exceptions to the warrant requirement. But you, generally speaking, you want to require them to get a warrant.
Only for the search of a device or the seizure of property. There are also due process implications of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You started to mention another one of your objections.
First Amendment.
First Amendment. Okay. Any others?
Yeah, I also have a state rights, a 10th Amendment concern here, which is that states own the airspace adjacent to the land within their state that's not federally owned, and the current federal provisions don't recognize state sovereignty in that way.
So you want to give state and local law enforcement the authority to fight back, but you want to list a whole lot of conditions. Is that a fair assessment?
Not a whole lot, but some. There needs to be a nexus to the facility. It can't be any drone anywhere in America if you're concerned about a particular facility, but right now it's too broad. There have to be acknowledgments of First Amendment concerns. So for instance, limiting the covered facilities to the experience and logic test with which the courts use for right of public access, or prohibiting media bans across the board, or setting a time limit before and after special events so they don't extend extensively. This is what a number of state measures already do, and I'd like to see that at a federal level and apply to bring this within the constitutional limits.
Sounds like a lot of conditions to me.
No, not very many. As long as there's probable cause and the conditions are met, then absolutely you can.
Have you ever heard of a legislative practice called living a bill to death?
Yes.
Okay. And that's when you take a bill and somebody says, I'm really for this bill. But then they add so many amendments and they screw it up so badly that the bill either becomes ineffective or doesn't pass. Is that a pretty accurate description?
Of the term?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're trying to love this to death, aren't you?
I disagree.
You're not really for giving law enforcement the power to fight back, are you?
I am in favor of giving law enforcement that power and respecting constitutional limits.
I don't believe you, Professor. Okay? You're not talking to Bambi's baby brother here. Okay, I've read some of your stuff. I think you'd be more intellectually honest if you just come out and say, I'm on the side of the bad guys here. I think we shouldn't give state and local law enforcement the authority to fight back. You're trying to make it as hard as possible, aren't you?
We'll have to disagree on that point, Senator.
Nah. You ever heard the expression, watch what they do, not what they say? I've watched what you've done. I know what you believe. Or you're on the FISA court?
I'm not on the court. No, I'm an amicus for the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court and the Court of Review.
Okay. Were you there when you guys issued all those bad warrants against Trump's people?
I can't discuss my work on the court, unfortunately.
Oh, it's top secret, right? You'd have to put me on the American people on double secret probation if you told them the truth, wouldn't you?
No. I can't discuss my matters that I've handled before the court. I can discuss the public ones where I've dealt with First Amendment concerns and the right to petition. I did an extensive history looking at that right.
I'm done,
to petition.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Kennedy. We're going to turn it over to Senator Blumenthal.
I just watched a Senate hearing that had me fired up, featuring none other than Senator John Kennedy, a man who doesn't mince words and doesn't play patty cake with bureaucrats. The topic? Drones, national security, constitutional limits, and of course, the ever-growing cancer of unelected academic elitists standing in the way of protecting the American people. Let me break this down for you. Senator Kennedy begins by pointing out something we all know. The bad guys are using drones. Period. These aren't hobbyists flying model airplanes in a park. These are terrorists, cartels, criminals, and foreign agents using drones for surveillance, smuggling, and possibly worse. And get this, nobody on the panel disagreed with that. So, if we all agree that this is a national security threat, then why is there so much hemming and hawing when it comes to giving state and local law enforcement the ability to fight back? Enter the professor. The classic academic elite. This guy's worried about the Fourth Amendment, the First Amendment, and even throws in a 10th Amendment concern about state airspace. Now look, I love the Constitution. That's why we're here. But these concerns aren't about protecting the Constitution. They're about tying the hands of the people who are supposed to defend it. This professor wants a warrant before drones can be stopped, even in dangerous scenarios. He's suggesting a dozen hoops law enforcement should jump through just to react to a threat. Probable cause, nexus to the facility, logic tests, media carve-outs. This guy sounds like he's preparing a syllabus, not a national defense strategy. Senator Kennedy wasn't having it. He calls out this entire strategy for what it is: loving a bill to death. That's when someone claims they support a bill, then drowns it in so many amendments and restrictions that it either dies in committee or becomes useless in practice. Let me tell you something, folks. That is exactly what the left does when they pretend to support law enforcement or border security. They say the right words, then wrap them in legal red tape so thick it could smother the Statue of Liberty herself. And here's where Senator Kennedy drops the hammer. He calls out the professor for what he's really doing. Not just disagreeing. Not just offering caution. No, he calls him out for making it as hard as humanly possible for cops to do their jobs. And you know what? He's right. This professor doesn't want law enforcement to have power. He wants chaos. He wants obstruction. Because he, like so many leftist academics, thinks the real threat is the people who wear the badge, not the terrorists flying drones over our borders. Kennedy says it point blank. I've read your stuff. I know what you believe. You're on the side of the bad guys. And you know what? That may sound harsh to the pearl-clutching crowd on MSNBC, but it's the truth. And then, oh, you're gonna love this, Kennedy brings up FISA. Remember that mess? When the intelligence community got caught red-handed issuing shady warrants against Trump's people. You better believe the professor was involved in that too, as an amicus, of course. The left loves these fancy titles. But when Kennedy asked about it, suddenly the professor clams up. Oh, I can't talk about that. It's top secret. Convenient, isn't it? Folks, this is the deep state in action. They spy on Americans, they undermine a sitting president, and then when they're called out, they hide behind red tape and classified language. Let me say this loud and clear. We cannot allow unelected academics and bureaucrats to dictate how our cops defend us from real threats. We cannot let legal theory override common sense. And we sure as hell can't allow law enforcement to be neutralized because some Ivy League professor thinks the Constitution is a toy to be played with. Senator Kennedy is doing what every elected official should be doing, asking the hard questions, pushing back against nonsense, and standing up for the American people. We're in a fight for the soul of this nation. And while the left is busy worrying about a drone's right to privacy, I'm over here wondering how many fentanyl packages are flying across our skies, how many terrorists are gathering intel, and how long we're going to tolerate these excuses from the ivory tower. If you're sick of this lunacy, if you believe in protecting your family, your community, and your Constitution, then join the fight. Share this video. Subscribe to the Constitution Corner. Comment below if you stand with Senator Kennedy and our brave law enforcement. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay free, and never back down. Victory Hand United States.